Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Blue Star Family's Money Mondays one more time. This is a webinar or a program that is dedicated to conversations about finances in the military. I am your host, Lydia Whitty, the JP Morgan Chase Financial Wellness Deploy Fellow with Blue Star Family's Campaign for Inclusion initiative. This initiative is aimed at increasing diversity in leadership within the military and veteran service organizations. A little bit about myself. Army veteran spouse and an ardent advocate for foreign born military spouses, service members, and their families. Today, we are going to discuss a very, very important topic for many American families: student loans. Do you know anyone who doesn't have student loans? Well, I can say I know so many with student loans. Our particular focus today will be on student loan forgiveness programs. We have a general appreciation of the importance of education, and as a matter of fact, research continues to show a positive correlation between education, earnings, and employment. To quote the US Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and I quote, as the US labor market continues to recover from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic, one constant remains: education boosts earnings and reduces unemployment. Let's have a look at this, guys. As we consider the earnings and unemployment rates by education attainment in 2021, you can definitely compare the median usual weekly earnings and unemployment rates to see why it's important to have education. So you could see the earnings rise as you rise in education, high school, college, associate degree, bachelor's degree. Your weekly earnings continue to grow. So it's not by default, or it's not by chance that this is the way it is. Now, it is clear that education plays an important role in whether we get in the job market or not and how much we earn. With this in mind, you can understand why so many people value and want and continue to pursue education. However, the reality is that the cost of college has steadily increased over the last 30 years. In that time frame, tuition costs at public four-year colleges grew from 4,160 to 10,740. Wow. And from 19,360 to 38,070 at private nonprofit institutions. These costs have been adjusted for inflation, of course. Now, as costs have arisen, so has the need for student loans and other forms of financial aid because, to be honest, who will afford 38,000 in cash for, a four-year degree? Today, more than half of students leave school with debt. Think about that. Today, more than half, because there's a need, okay? Now, let's have a look at these two. As you can see from your screen, $1.75 trillion in total student loan debt. Did you hear me? $1.75 trillion in total student loan debt, this includes federal and private loans. 28,950 is owed per borrower on average. So anyone leaving school at least owes $28,950. About 92% of all student loan debt are federal student loans. 55% of student loans are from public four-year institutions. 54% of students from public four-year institutions had student loans. 55%. And 57% of students from private, nonprofit, four-year institutions took on education debt. Where do we find this? From the Institute for College Access and Success. Okay? Now, just from that, I feel already overwhelmed. Like more than half of Americans have student loans, and the average student loans is almost $30. $30,000, sorry, $30,000 almost on average. That's a whopping number. I don't know if you don't have an issue with that. I definitely do have an issue with that, you know? Um, yeah, so that's where we are at. Now, as we let these numbers sink in, I would like to introduce you to Nicole Rawlinson. Nicole is my colleague, the manager welcome programs for Blue Star families. Nicole, say hi.
Hello.
With a background in community-focused services to youth and families, Nicole leads with her passion for creating relationships and connecting communities. She has spent her career developing and supporting programs that drive equity through community voice, inspiring young people, and building up resilient future leaders. She has focused on community empowered approaches to programming, services, and professional development within the museum and library services field, and now approaches this work through the lens of military family support. As manager of Welcome Programs, Nicole manages the development and delivery of Blue Star programs and volunteer opportunities. Through strategic partnerships and collaborative efforts, she develops programs and meaningful connections that provide military families support and a sense of inclusion and belonging wherever the military takes them. She primarily manages Blue Star Outdoors, working to connect the military family community to nature through outdoor interpretation, education and recreational opportunities, volunteer stewardship, and conservation outings, drop-in programs, and online resources. Through strategic partnerships and collaborative efforts, she developed programmatic efforts to engage more military families with support to find a sense of inclusion and belonging in outdoor spaces wherever the military takes them. Nicole holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Cleveland University and a Master of Library and Information Science from Kent University, both in her home state of Ohio. She currently resides in the greater Washington, D.C. area with her husband and their two children and their adopted pets. Wow, Nicole, that's amazing. I've learned something about you today. So, welcome to the program. All right, before we hear from Nicole, allow me to put this, whatever we're talking about, student loan debt, into context within the military community, because that's why we are here specifically. Now, 48% of active duty family respondents report that their financial situation causes them some or a great deal of stress. Spouse or underemployment is at 41% of the respondents, and student loans, 30%, are the two top contributors to their financial stress. I don't know what to say about that, but you can tell that within the military, student loans is the second issue that causes stress, financial stress for military families. Now, 82% of active duty spouse respondents, funded their education through student loans. 82%. I want you to focus on that. 82% of active duty spouse respondents funded their education through student loans, and 33% currently hold student loan debt. I will give you more information, but before that, I want to tell you that this is from the Blue Star Families Military Family Lifestyle Survey of 2021. So that was last year. As we move on, Please note that because of the barriers to spouse unemployment, spouses may be and underemployed despite having obtained a degree paid for with student loans. How sad is that? I know I fall within that category. I don't know about you, Nicole, but this is something that really resonates with me personally. Now, the last thing I want to tell you is this debt may therefore be disproportionate to the household income, given that 41% of active duty spouse respondents with low to moderate family income, which is 50,000 per year or less, owe student loan debt. Now, this is a situation where I have a debt, but I'm not working or underemployed. What do I do? Nicole, care to say something?
Well, it's just really, it is really frustrating to be in a situation where you are interested in advancing yourself and your opportunities, but you have no opportunity to pay for it without taking out student debt. And oftentimes it comes from, not necessarily knowing how much debt you really should be taking on, because you've been told by perhaps, a academic advisor that you should not work while you're in school and just to take the loan and pay it back later. That's what I was told. And oftentimes when you're dealing with also first generation college students, they don't have parents to necessarily say, oh, hey, I've been there and done that. You don't want to do that. I'm a first generation college graduate. I did not have parents who were able to help me navigate the process of paying for a college education. And I actually, paid for 2 degrees. I did my undergraduate degree and a master's degree. And, I was able to come out of my undergrad with limited debt, but master's degrees do cost a lot of money. And by the time, and by the time I was completed with, all of my schooling to prepare me for a professional career, I was $80,000 in debt. And that's really a big number, especially when you fall in love with someone in the service and realize that your job prospects have just changed significantly as well.
Oh, yes. Talk to me about that. I'm someone who came in with one of the degrees that is difficult to recognize when you're different in a different jurisdiction. So I was a lawyer before I came in, and I had to, swallow the bitter pill that American law is different from, the common law that I studied. So I had to get myself a different master's degree just because of the military life that would have meant moving from one place to another, and therefore sustaining a legal career was not feasible, was not, something that was going to be easy to do. So I had to get loans to pay for my master's degree, and here we are talking about the same thing that really, really affects so many, military families. And I don't want it to be like, why do we have to go through this, especially as military spouses? It gets me really, I don't know, sometimes, for lack of a better term, resentful of the military. But as we have heard today, as I have presented today, it's something that is a problem for so many people. Let's go further and put this in context again. As the Blue Star Family Military and Veteran Families Financial Needs 2021, we call this pulse check, was done, there are certain things that came out as the immediate financial needs by rank for military families. Now, look at this. Consumer debt comes at number 1 for families as an immediate need. It cuts across the board for junior enlisted, mid enlisted, an officer and above. This is the number one immediate financial need. 34%, 37%, and going down. The second immediate need is student loan. I don't know. This issue definitely needs a lot of attention because it cuts across the board. You would think because some issues, for example, the last time we were here, we were talking about food insecurity. And it came out that it was not as bad for officers and above, but for the enlisted group, it was not as good. But when it comes to student loans, it cuts across the board. It's generally between 30 and 35% for student loans. So this definitely is a problem for everyone in the military. As an immediate financial need, you can definitely see debt, and then consumer debt, and then student loans. Second, even higher, let me put this up again, even higher ranking than mortgage or rent. Nicole, ranking higher than mortgage or rent, because mortgage and rent is 19% for junior enlisted, 14% for commissioned officers, 16 for mid enlisted. Student debt is of more immediate need than where you live and even what you eat, because food is like on key essentials, childcare, medical care, utilities, and reimbursement of relocation costs and all. So the things that we think are basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, student loans is ranked higher than them as an immediate financial need. That is mind-boggling for me. Nicole, you wanna chime in?
Yeah, I mean, just to add a little bit of like personal context to that, in 2019, before the COVID pandemic shut down the loan repayment for most direct borrowers, between my spouse and I, we actually did pay more per month in student loan repayment than we did on our mortgage. So that really tracks for me. Our student loan payment actually was larger than our mortgage prior to the pandemic. And, right now we're in that temporary freeze for payments, and then also for interest. However, that's all going to restart in January. And so people have to start, preparing themselves for beginning that repayment again, because it is coming.
Wow. Amazing. More in student loans than in mortgage. I don't know if we should find this funny. I don't know if this should be something that's normal. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I would not really fault, but consider it from a perspective of I come from a place where student loan is not like a very big issue. I think most of the people from where I come pay for school in cash, or there's some kind of community support. I want to take my kids to school, so people tend to come and help. But my transition into the American system, where it's debt for almost everything, has been such a huge eye opener for me, for sure. A very, very huge one. Yeah. So if you're joining us, thank you for joining. We are discussing student loans. Please share something, a thought in the comments. Let's know that you're here. We'll be very happy to answer some of your questions if you have them. Okay? Share whatever you have, whether you're just where you're listening from. Just share a thought or a comment. Thank you. Let's proceed, Nicole. Let's talk about the impact of student loans. We've talked very much about why we need it, but how does it affect us? And this perspective, I want to keep it to the ratio. I want to give it a ratio aspect. I want to focus on the racial aspect where do we know how student loans affect students or people or black and brown, coming from black and brown backgrounds? Now, it is true from research, which is from education data, that Hispanic borrowers say they put off getting married and having children due to student loan debt. This is sad for me. Black borrowers were the most likely to put off buying a home and to report having to work more than they would prefer. In 2007 and 8, Black bachelor's degree holders were most likely to describe their educational debt-related stress as very high. And 58% of Black borrowers do not believe student loans have advanced racial equity, while 66% regret having taken out student loans to fund their education. We'll come back to this slide again. But just as one of them, I would say the last part definitely applies to me. I honestly regret taking student loans. Nicole, let me know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like in a way, everyone looks back at the choices that they made when they decided to take out the kind of debt that they did to pay for their education. Without student loans, would I have been able to complete my degree within an amount of time that felt appropriate? Probably not. I probably would not have been able to pay for it, because we also have to talk about the inflated cost of education in general. It's inaccessible to most people without student debt. I personally wish that someone had told me, if you must take out student loans, only take out the absolute minimum that you need. Still plan to work full time. Still plan to pay a portion. Even if that means taking 3 years to finish your master's degree instead of 2, right? Someone to have helped me along the way with that path, I think would have been really, really valuable to me, because I wouldn't have graduated with as much debt. For my career path, in a lot of ways, I was told I absolutely needed to have a master's degree, and I'm learning that I didn't really need the master's degree that I have. For a lot of jobs that I have ended up taking. Of the many jobs I have held as a military spouse, only one of them I have used my actual master's degree to qualify for. So in that sense, yes, I am very disappointed in my decision to take out all of that debt for a master's degree that ended up not actually being a benchmark for obtaining employment. That was a very frustrating part. I will say I currently have a nephew who's enrolled in university, and we have talked at length about the dangers of taking out student debt and the importance of navigating this process with someone who is really thinking about him and thinking about how his decisions will impact his future. I've told him, I want you to have a great college experience, but I don't want it to be at the cost of the rest of your future. And so while he is, getting some grants and scholarships, there are some costs that aren't covered. And we're working together as a whole family to help support him to, try and make up that difference so that he doesn't have to take out student loans. But it's not just me, it's not just his mom, it's not just the grandparents, it's everybody coming together. And not everybody has those kinds of community connections or familial connections to support. And so it's very difficult to say, never take out student debt at all, because if you don't have access to the money to pay, then you don't have access to education. And, if you don't have that education, what are your odds for being able to, to earn enough money to make a living wage and, and actually live as opposed to just survive? So it's a very tricky question, and it's hard to balance the scale sometimes.
Yes, I feel like you between a rock and a hard place. Your choices are limited to one. You have no choice. I see Kimberly on the chat talking about credit was a foreign concept to my family as well. Same to mine. And she goes ahead to say the fact that far too often we pay more in interest than the actual amount of the loan boggles me. Oh, Nicole, we were just talking about that before we got on, remember? And you were telling me about just having paid it for so many years and still it feels like you haven't even moved anything. And I think that shouldn't be acceptable. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for that perspective.
Yes, Kimberly, thank you for that. And as I was saying to Lydia, yes, it is quite possible to be paying on your student debt for multiple years and never see the needle move at all. As a matter of fact, your principal will most likely rise. I've been paying on my student debt for about 9 years now, and my debt has actually risen despite paying every single month. An income-based repayment that has been, a significant amount of money. As I had mentioned, we were paying more in student debt than we were for our mortgage.
That's a sad situation. Well, now let's consider student loan debt forgiveness and race. Student loan debt forgiveness would immediately increase the wealth of Black Americans by up to 40%. Today, we are talking about these forgiveness programs. So, look at how much it would impact these communities. Black college attendees have a net worth that is 8,500 less than their white peers. Keep in mind, we're talking about forgiveness. White bachelor's degree holders make between 90% among women and 30% among men more in median annual income than their Black counterparts. White households have a home ownership rate of 73%, while 43% of Black households own their homes. Lastly, 60% of still indebted Black student loan borrowers do not have a savings account, while those on income-driven repayment plans, which is 71%, do not have a savings account. When I read some of these things, and I think that is the reason because I'm within the racial equity and inclusion campaign, I have a really huge focus on Black, Indigenous, and people of color to see how so many of these financial issues affect them. And we can tell from what I just showed you that if these forgiveness programs were to be actualized, the impact would be greater on this population. Now, let's proceed to the reason why we are here today. One of them is public service loan forgiveness programs. To put this into context, 10,776 borrowers have successfully had their federal loans forgiven. This equates to more than $1 billion as of September of 2021. $1 billion. Wow. But if you keep in mind that there's 1.75 trillion still, 1 billion is like drop in the ocean. The average applicant discharged about 95,000 in debt. 95. I know personally, in my household, we have discharged more than 100,000 because of this. An additional 1.3 million borrowers may be eligible for PSLF in the future. PSLF is public student loan forgiveness, which is what we're talking about. And this is about 132 billion in debt. Let's focus on this. An additional 1.3 million borrowers may be eligible in the future to discharge 132 billion in debt. I would jump on this very quickly. Now, between November 2020 and September 2021, 678,373 applications were submitted. That's amazing. Most employment certification forms were approved. 99.7% met the employer requirements. Nearly all PSLF forms were denied because the applicant did not meet requirements. We're going to talk about the requirements ahead, just a little bit, but keep that in mind because you want to know why and you want to avoid being denied as an applicant. Lastly, the most common reason for denial was that the applicant had not completed 120 qualifying payments on their direct loans. But there's good news about that, as Nicole is going to tell us. Now, the reason why we have Nicole today here is particularly related to PSLF. Okay? Nicole, talk to us about your journey. Talk to us about the sleepless nights. Talk to us about every single thing that has made you and your husband successful in this journey.
Thanks, Lydia. So I do want to just take a second to do a little bit of context building around the opportunity right now with public service loan forgiveness. You mentioned that 98% of applicants were denied despite being employed at a nonprofit or public service organization, government organization, military, first responder, teachers. And the reasoning was because they had the wrong loan type or they were on the wrong payment plan. So right now, and this in October of 2021, the administration announced a limited waiver. And through this limited waiver, people who had government-backed federal loans that were not necessarily the right direct loan, or people who had been paying on a payment plan that was not previously a qualifying payment plan, were able to use this waiver period between October of 2021 and October 31st of 2022 to get credit for those past payments and achieve loan forgiveness. So those numbers are rising on the approvals for forgiveness, which is a really big deal because we're actually seeing headway. It was very, very unfortunate that in 2017, which was, between 2017 and 2021, which were the first 4 years that anyone would have been eligible to achieve public service loan forgiveness, because it does require 10 years, and the program saw its beginning in 2007 under the Bush administration. 2% of applications were approved, and it all had to do with a lack of information and knowledge on what type of loan you needed to have and what type of payment plan you needed to be on. The other thing that stopped a lot of people is once they learned that they were on the wrong type of repayment plan or had the wrong type of loan, they were already so far into the process that they felt trapped and they wouldn't be able to ever really obtain that forgiveness. Because also, when you consolidate your loans into those direct loans that we're talking about as the appropriate type of loan, before the waiver period, that started your public service loan forgiveness clock back at 0. And so during this waiver period, consolidations that happen before October 31st will still be able to have those previous counts, even with the wrong loan type and the wrong payment plan. So that's the really, really important piece, is that by October 31st, you need to have completed a couple of really important tasks. You need to have gone to studentaid.gov, and you need to have filled out that public service loan forgiveness PSLF help tool to determine whether or not you've been employed by the right type of employer. You need to turn that into your loan servicer, and you need to make sure that if you need to consolidate your federal student loans into a direct loan, that you have begun that process before October 31st of 2022. That is very, very important if you want to take advantage of the waiver. So for a little bit of, my own story, and actually I'm counting my story as a success, y'all. My family is an actual success story of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. My husband joined the Navy in 2011. And he joined the Navy in 2009. He was finishing school during that process as a part of the accessioning program that he came in through. He began repaying his student loans in 2012. He did not consolidate his loans until 2014, when I was kind of like, hey, have you heard of this program? It's called Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and I think that you'll be able to qualify for it through your military service. I'm going to try and do it, as a person who's working for a nonprofit. My career has been in nonprofits ever since I got out of school. And he was like, no, that doesn't sound legit to me. I don't really want to do that. I'm like, it's a government program. I think it's legit, and it took a lot. It took a lot to convince him to even go through with the consolidation. And so it was a little bit heartbreaking when he learned that he was going to lose some credit of years that he had been serving because that consolidation would take him to a zero count. So we were planning on him reaching his public service loan forgiveness in January of 2024. But because of the limited waiver, he actually was granted his forgiveness in September of 2022. Really just right on time, right at that 10-year mark of starting to pay. So the process works. It takes a while. It is frustrating in ways. The communication between the loan servicers and you are not wonderful, because there's millions of us out there trying for this same thing. But I'm here to tell you that we had $82,000 worth of student debt eliminated from our shoulders in September of 2022. And I officially have 90 of my 120 payments accounted for and approved. So I have 2.5 years left until my $86,000 of debt is also forgiven because of our public service. So I just want everyone out there to know that, this is a program that at first was very poorly designed. And this administration is doing its best to help right some of the wrongs of the original administration of the program. But it also requires that as the consumer, you do a little bit of work to get that application in on time. So if you think for even just 1 second that some of your employment counts towards public service loan forgiveness, get that clock started. Go fill out the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Help Tool on studentaid.gov. Make sure that you've got your loans consolidated into direct loans that will count. If you are the parent of children who have already been through college and you are working in public service, Parent Plus loans during this limited time waiver are also something that can be consolidated into your own debt and counted towards public service loan forgiveness. And that's huge. So all of this information is available on the studentaid.gov website. The White House has done a really phenomenal job at messaging out about these opportunities, but they do come with an expiration date. So I just want to make sure that everyone who's listening today knows how important it is to get that PSLF help tool filled out and signed by your employer and sent in to your loan servicer before October 31st. So you're going to send that in actually to Mohila, which is the new official loan servicer for public service loan forgiveness. Your loans will then be transferred to Mohila as your new servicer. If you are working on the public service loan forgiveness track, that is the servicer that you will have moving forward. So do remember, when you fill it out, send it in. You can send it into your current loan servicer, but you also want to make sure that that gets to Mohila. And if you have not already started your consolidation, please do that right now. Hang up from this call and go start working on your consolidation because the clock is ticking. You got less than 2 weeks at this point.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Nicole. In as much as what we've been talking about from the beginning has been grim, you bring like the ray of hope. This is possible. This is real. It works. If you just follow what you're supposed to do, it actually works. Congratulations to you. September was just last month. So you must just be like feeling so freshly like, yay, this is something we have worked on for so long. And finally, it has come to fruition. Congratulations. And I'm hoping so many of you will have that feeling that Nicole is having right now. If you just go, follow the instructions and follow the advice, consolidate whenever you can, and read much about it. What I say is there's always information out there. And part of what we are doing right now is throughout this webinar, we will be sharing resources with you as a military connected family that you can take advantage of. Okay. We will be putting all those in the chat. Like we have put some of them where you can find more information, the resources. But as we continue to talk, we will be giving you a lot of that, including the Service Member Civil Relief Act, the certain things, for example, that can limit the interest rates charged on your loans where you are on active duty status. If you have a federal loan, you can qualify for income-driven repayment options to potentially reduce your monthly payment, and can even utilize loan forbearance or determine options during times of financial hardships. So as a military family, you definitely have a lot of options. Keep watching in the chat. There will be a lot coming. So there'll be links to places. There'll be all sorts of resources for you to use. You will find out, and as you read more, you will figure out that this honestly is not very hard. Just the other day, I clicked on the link that they're doing the, I think the pre-test or something for the new student loan forgiveness program, the 10,000 versus the 20,000 one, depending on which one you have. And it took less than 30 seconds. I was like, whoa, this is interesting. Yeah, so it can be done. So let's take advantage of what's out there. Yeah. As we continue to do this, we've heard Nicole talk about what's going on with PSLF and how her journey was. Currently, as she talked about the new program and the date that's coming up for the end of applications, there's certain things that were changed as part of the new program, and there's certain things that remain the same. So I'd just like to take you through the things that have changed and the ones that remain the same, so that you can have the idea in your mind and you can take advantage of what you still have until October 31st regarding public service loan forgiveness. Okay. So what has changed is that you will receive credit for periods of repayments on direct FFEL or Perkin loans. Okay? The second one is periods of repayment under any plan count. But I want you to keep this in mind. October 31st is the end. I think this webinar comes in very timely because it is just like the last push. Run. What has changed also is that periods of repayment on loans before consolidation count. You heard Nicole say some of them did not count. So now they do count, even if they were on the wrong repayment plan. Periods of repayment where payments were late or for less than the amount due also count. Periods of repayment on loans before consolidation count, even if paid late or for less than the amount due. So all sorts of repayments count right now until October 31st. Don't let this cut you off. Don't think, oh, I didn't make this payment. Now is the time to just check through what has changed and for you to take advantage. Now you can get forgiveness even if not employed or not employed by a qualifying employer at the time of application and forgiveness. This was a huge thing. Now they reduced it to, please, just come. Okay? If you got teacher loan forgiveness, the period of service that led to your eligibility can count towards PSLF if you certify PSLF employment for that period. This is amazing. There's so many ways for you to qualify. Please go and do that before October 31st. Now, this is what has not changed. This is what remains the same. You will receive credit only on direct loans. You need to have repaid under the 10-year standard plan or an income-driven repayment plan. You will have made on-time payments. You work full-time for a qualifying employer in order to receive credit. And you must work for a qualifying employer at the time of application and forgiveness. If you got teacher loan forgiveness, the period of service that led to eligibility cannot also count toward PSLF. Okay? Please keep this in mind. If you want to take a screenshot of this, if you want to go read about it, it's also out there. We will drop some of them on the chat as well, so that you just know exactly what's going on, and so you keep yourself updated and abreast of exactly what's going on, and keep yourself, in the know, as I say. Without information, you do not know anything. Okay? Now, as we move forward, I want to make sure that you have learned, you've at least known what's going on. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing. And we're going to discuss, as part of this, exactly the things that a lot of us sometimes forget, and a lot of us sometimes do not, remember to discuss with our fellow, co-workers, friends, neighbors, but things that really do matter. So please bear with me as I share this. I want to remind you that there is the Biden Student Loan Debt Relief Plan. It has been here, but it has been in process. Everybody has been, when is this coming? When is this coming? When is this coming? Well, I want to say finally it's here. There's a link to it on the chat right now. Go read about it. There's already a link to application, the pre-formal application, because the formal one, I'm not sure when it's supposed to come, but it will definitely come. Okay, so there's the Biden Student Loan Debt Relief Plan that has 3 major steps. And for that, I want to, the reason I said we don't discuss this so much is because sometimes you just have information half-baked and you don't consider exactly what it's about. But I wanted to bring all this to your attention so that you can understand what is currently going on and what is in the works, so that if you have an opportunity to support, maybe through a town hall, maybe through your vote somewhere in the coming elections, you can make sure that you are fully aware and you can make informed decisions. So the first phase is that student loan repayment was paused all the way through December 31st of this year. So you don't have to make any loan payment again until, not again, you don't have to pay until December 31st. Well, the choice is yours. If you want to pay, but you don't have to until the set time, which is December 31st of this year. The second one is that debt relief to low and middle income families has been proposed, meaning you're eligible if, as an individual income earner, you earned less than $125,000, or if you filed together as a household, you earned less than $250,000. That is how you qualify. And you will get up to $20,000 in debt relief if you had a Pell Grant, if you received a Pell Grant. And you will get up to $10,000 if you are a non-Pell Grant recipient. If I was to be given a $10,000 student relief right now, definitely it would take my student loan debt way below. And I'd love that opportunity to share this with you so that you can share it with the next person and the next person. So within this debt relief to middle to low income families, nearly 8 million borrowers may be eligible to receive relief without applying. Can you believe that? Without applying. unless you choose to opt out. There's certain people who will opt out for certain reasons. If you read about it, you will find out. Because of relevant income data that's already available in the US to the US Department of Education. So they already have some of your tax income already. So, and you don't even need to apply. You will just suddenly, when you go to check on your student loans, it will be less than 10,000 or less by 10,000 or less by 20,000. That's amazing. For borrowers whose income data the US Department of Education doesn't have, a simple application will be launched this month. I saw the pre-launch. It's right there and it's very simple. I said it took me less than 30 seconds. And there's no need to upload any documents or have an FSA ID to submit an application. You don't need that. Most borrowers who who apply can expect relief within 6 weeks. 6 weeks. So it's not going to take long before you know. Borrowers are advised to apply by mid-November in order to receive relief before the payment pause expires in December 31st of this year. All right, this is the third and the final. I see the first two, those are very much in place. The third one is the administration wants to make the student loan system more manageable by proposing a new rule that would, number one, require borrowers to pay no more than 5% instead of 10% of their discretionary income monthly on undergraduate loans. I remember Nicole talking about having to pay more on student loans than on mortgage. This rule would raise the amount of income that is considered non-discretionary, and this is income that is protected from repayment, guaranteeing that borrowers earning under 225% of the federal poverty level, which is the annual equivalent of a $15 minimum wage, they will not have to make a monthly payment. This is huge news for so many Americans and so many of them who do have student loans. This rule would also forgive loan balances after 10 years instead of 20 of payment for borrowers with balances of 12,000 or less. How amazing is this news? So if you pay for 10 years and you have less than 12,000, poof, gone. Lastly, this rule would cover the borrower's unpaid monthly interest so that no borrower's loan balance will grow as long as they make their monthly payments, even when that monthly payment is zero because their income is low. I remember very, very vividly you talked about this, Nicole. You've been paying for almost 10 years, but the balance just keeps growing. I love this new rule. Why? Because it makes sure that the balance will not be increasing. As long as you're paying, the balance will not be growing and growing and growing. Finally, someone has figured out the solution to a problem that you have encountered, and I think I have encountered too, and be like, wow, why should someone be paying their loans for this long? Yet, as you said in your exact words, you don't feel like you've moved the needle at all. And that's a desperate situation. Very desperate situation. I want to hear what your thoughts are, Nicole.
I just really hope that, folks will take advantage of this opportunity to have some of their, debt relieved. I know that I took a look at that link over the weekend and popped my information in. I feel really, really happy to know that I've got that behind me in the rear view. It really did. It took 30 seconds. You have time to do it right now while you're listening to this webinar. Go ahead, put your info in and watch the process happen. Despite being close to public service loan forgiveness, I'm looking forward to seeing that debt drop and feeling like I have some tangible outcomes immediately. I think that's going to help a lot of Americans feel really good. I think that there's still work to be done. I think that that the interest caps should be something that we're thinking about. I think that making sure that student debt is appropriately amortized and is not growing is something that's really important. But also, I think that we really need to get to the root of the problem, and that's the inflated cost of education. It shouldn't
Yes.
cost that much to get an education. And so, I truly wish that we could really get to kind of those root causes, because as long as we're just, pulling folks out of the river instead of damming it up, we're still going to have these issues. So I think that, something that I would really love to see happen in the next few years is some sort of plan to get the cost of education back down to something that's actually manageable for real American families. And by real, I mean average American families, folks who don't have generational wealth and a checkbook that can just write a tuition payment. That is something that I don't know anyone who has that kind of money to be able to pay for their education out of pocket, especially not when it requires living expenses as well. So, that's my ultimate dream, is just to see folks, being able to attain an education without having to go into debt. And we'll see if that ever happens. I'm going to stay cautiously optimistic.
Well, better cautiously optimistic than not at all. Okay, we see at least there's some things being done, steps in the right direction, and this is where we would call on, just think about it. Sometimes I think we tend to put maybe politics and all, oh, because it comes from this person, I have to just shut it down, I have to. But again, sometimes we tend to vote against our own interests. Whoever would propose something that would benefit me as a borrower, I wouldn't mind whoever it came from, and I would support it wholeheartedly. And I would hope that people would run to their representatives to scream and say, please, let this thing pass, let it pass, let it pass, because it doesn't make sense for anybody to shut it down when it benefits most of us, most of us. I will also remain very, very cautiously optimistic, but optimistic nonetheless. This has been great. Thank you so much, Nicole, for joining me.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to us talk about student loan forgiveness. We hope that you gathered some amazing information today. Nicole, thank you for being very passionate about helping our communities as well and our military families. This is a very important topic that impacts so many. From me, we would love to hear from you, our viewers, as well. So if you want to reach out for more resources, or you want to share something that you find helpful, please leave a comment in the chat, or just remember to reach out to me personally as well. I will leave my contacts in the comments. As we close, remember we will continue to cover subjects like this. So join us for our next Money Monday session on October 31st as we discuss financial literacy. And we'll figure out how to save, investment, retirement, generational wealth, estate planning, budgeting, debt management, and all the good stuff. You don't want to miss that, do you?
No.
Thank you again for joining us. Nicole, do you have any closing remarks?
No, just thank you so much for inviting me. Was really thrilled to be able to share our success story as a family. And I wish the absolute best to all of you families out there who are working towards public service loan forgiveness as well. And, just keep doing it. It works.
Thank you. Thank you again. And from everyone at Blue Star Families, have a great day. Bye-bye.